All right, we are back for Deeper Learning Series number 6. Can't believe we've done so many already. We are going to be talking about transitions in your PTA. I'm Heather Ippolito.
And I am Leslie Powell.
And tonight we're going to be tag teaming, talking about what the current board needs to do to finish out the year, what the board-elect gets to do, and then just a couple of the starting steps for next year once the new term begins. So I'm going to share my screen. It's always so dramatic when I do this on my screen. I have no idea what it looks like for you guys, but it looks really cool for me. All right, so we are Deeper Learning Series number 6, transitioning. So tonight we're going to just do quick introductions. And again, we're going to talk about the existing board, what they need to do as this time of change is happening, what the board-elect is allowed to do, how you can work together to transition, and then the first steps in the new term. If you have any questions, you can put them in the side panel, and my trusty husband is monitoring on the computer downstairs, and he will let me know as those questions come in. So we will either answer them in real time or there'll be time at the end. All right, so speaking of my trusty husband, there's a picture of us in the snow just a few weeks ago in Reno. I have been serving on PTA since back when I was a teacher at Valley View. So I've been on PTA for a very long time. I now serve PTA at 4 different levels. I am at Leona Cox. I am on council, 34th District, and State PTA, where I proudly serve as the chair of the Special Committee for Arts Education and on the Education Commission. And then my trusty cohort, Leslie, here is going to tell you a little bit about herself.
I am Leslie Powell, and I am EVP for council, and I'm actually EVP at my unit too at West Creek. And I have been doing PTA since my daughter was in 2nd grade, and she will be graduating from college in 6 weeks, actually.
Oh my gosh, 6 weeks?
Something like that. Yeah, exciting.
That's so exciting.
So I have 4 kids there. That's who's in my picture there. Last year, my son graduated from high school. This year, my daughter will graduate from college. And next year, my other son will graduate from high school.
Oh my goodness. I always stalk people's Facebook profiles for their pictures, so they never quite know what I'm going to put in the slideshow. So. All right, so Leslie's going to talk about the current board and what happens after your elections.
Okay, so you have your elections, or you may have already had your elections, but if not, your elections are coming up really soon. And you then officially have a new board. But the current board's job isn't done yet. So your meetings will continue as they were calendared. So all of your e-board meetings, all your association meetings, just like you have them in your calendar. And you probably have a ton of things happening at the end of the year. At the end of the year in the springtime is a busy, busy time for most PTAs. So all of those things will still be finished up this year. Your president, one of the president's jobs will be to enter the new officer's contact information into PTA Easy. Those of you who have and use PTA Easy, you can go in and enter those things as soon as you have them. Just get it done, clear that off of your list. Those of you who do not use PTA Easy, don't panic. As soon as Heather receives a link from state, she will send that link on to you, and you will use it to access the PTA Easy, where you will enter all of the new contact information for all of next year's officers.
And please enter as much of the information as you can, because it really helps district and council and state know who to contact for their other counterparts. So in other words, the district historian might want to contact you at the unit level, but if they don't have an email address and a phone number and a name in there for your unit historian, they don't know who to contact.
Correct. And if you put all that information in, if you are the president, you will save yourself some emails down the road, because they will know who to email. Another thing to make sure that you have done is make sure that your procedure binders are all up to date. Every office and committee chairperson should have a procedure binder, and make sure that all of the current information is in there so that you can pass that on to the next person, and they have a place to start instead of having to reinvent the wheel. At the end of the term, one of your treasurer's last jobs is to complete the annual financial report. This is really important, and a lot of treasurers don't remember to do it, but it's the last thing that they need to do for the year, and that will get turned in to council. And once all of that financial stuff is complete, the treasurer will hand all of the stuff over to the auditor, who will then complete the end of the year audit. If your auditor position is turning over for the next year, you have a new auditor who will be taking over, it would be great to have that new auditor sit in with the current auditor so that they can learn the ropes and see how your PTA works. It is really helpful if a set of eyes from your own PTA can explain it to the incoming auditor. It will make their lives so much easier. Another thing to remember is when you're leaving, when you're actually leaving, leave things as organized and clean as possible. If you have a PTA room, if you have a PTA cabinet or a closet or a storage bin or whatever you might have, leave everything as organized and clean as possible. Have your whole board get together and get it all ready for the next board so that they aren't searching for things and asking you where things are. Another thing to remember is to make sure that you remit all of your membership before that end of the year. Send that up to council so that we can send it along up the channels. Your current board should meet with the board-elect. It's a really good idea to have them sit down and talk to the incoming board, or allow the incoming board to sit in on some meetings so that they can see how things work. And then at the final association meeting of the year, the board-elect will present their budget and calendar, which we'll talk a little bit more about forming the budget and calendar in a little bit. But at that final association meeting, the board-elect will present their budget and calendar. Also, the current board should invite the new officers to trainings or meetings and introduce them to key people on campus. So invite the board to an e-board meeting. If you as president or whatever other office you hold attends PAC meetings, for instance, maybe take somebody along with you so that they can see what's coming up for the future for themselves. If they are new around campus and don't know key people, like maybe the custodian or different people like cafeteria workers, people that we oftentimes have to call upon to help us, it would be great to do a personal introduction to those people. Also, the current board should evaluate your year. How did it go? Do you feel like it went well? Do you feel like there are some things that could be improved? Did you make notes along the way? Maybe compile that stuff to hand over to the next board so that they have a place to start when they're doing their planning. And then also, you might want to take a little bit of time and thank your key volunteers with honorary service awards or certificates. Remember that we are not allowed to give gifts, so no gift cards, no personal gifts, but you may give a certificate of appreciation or an honorary service award. All of that can be found on CAPTA. You can order them.
They also have really cool pins for each of the officers. I've always wanted a president's pin. I've never gotten one, but I've always wanted one. This is my shameless plug. But those are absolutely allowable expenses that you guys can, as a way of appreciating those officers who've invested a lot of time and effort on your PTA board.
And then just finish the term strong. Go out with a bang, do everything the right way, do it to the best of your ability, and be proud of what you've done. Over on the right side of that slide that's up on the screen right now is a term end checklist. If you are interested in that, you can find that at capta.org. And you can check that out, and it gives a little bit more detailed information on specific things with membership and training.
All right, so this is for all the newly elected board out there. You may begin to meet as soon as the elections are over. So you can start holding your planning meetings, your organizational meetings the day after elections are done. Your first tasks are to fill any vacancies on the board. So sometimes during elections, we can't fill certain spots. You, as the board elect, now get to fill those spots. We don't have multiple elections. There is one election. It usually happens March, April, May. Once those elections are over, we don't do other officer elections. Everything else, if there's a vacancy, is appointed by your board. Now you can start to appoint chair people. This is the pleasure of the president. They get to find some people to chair the different committees, whether it's a standing committee or a one-time committee. They do need to get those appointments ratified by the board-elect, but they can start talking to people. Hey, Mrs. Smith, would you like to be our 6th grade chairperson? We know that your daughter is in 6th grade, and we think you'd be great next year. And then bring Mrs. Smith to one of your meetings and say, hey, what do you think of Mrs. Smith for 6th grade chair? Yay, we love Mrs. Smith. You will need to create a calendar and a budget for your term. Now, for the calendar, this needs to happen in conjunction with your school administration, because we have to make sure that the PTA calendar and the school calendar aren't fighting each other. So the principal or the assistant principal or the leadership team often has their district events already scheduled, a lot of their school events, open house, back to school night. We don't want to be planning, the father-daughter dance on the same night as open house. That's counterproductive. So you do that. You do your calendaring in conjunction with your school administration. Your budget comes after your calendar, because you need to know where the money is going to go and how are you going to get it to do all of your events. So usually the board-elect will meet. They'll do some goal setting, talk about what they want to do in the upcoming year. They'll start forming a calendar. They'll meet with the principal. They'll tweak their calendar a little bit. Then the budget committee will sit down with the calendar and the current budget for this past year, and they'll modify that for a budget for the new term. It is highly suggested that the board-elect get input from the current board, at least from the president and the treasurer. Those two people have been living the calendar and the budget all year. They are the experts. They know, wow, we had to change the budget multiple times for office supplies because we started with a $10 budget and that just wasn't realistic. So it's really, really helpful if the new board is including at least those two in the calendar and budget committee meetings. You need to start, as I previously said, with some team building, some goal setting, and lots of training. Your new board needs to come together with a common goal. They need to feel like they can trust and respect and work together. And that doesn't come just magically. You have to work for it. So whether that's all going out to lunch together, whether that's going to a park, you can do a paint night or bowling or whatever. Just try and do some social team building things. With the council board, we all took a little road trip over to the beach and we all piled into one car, and the conversation that happened in that car was really powerful in doing some team building. We had some people who knew each other really well and some people who didn't know the rest of the group at all. And having everybody in one car together is one surefire way to get everyone talking. You want to set goals so that you know where you're going. You want to have a path. Now, we know that the goal of PTA is always to positively impact the lives of children and families, but how are you specifically going to do that at your site? What things are really important to your families? And then the training opportunities actually start in the spring, and then they continue all through the summer, and then again in the fall. So we really, really encourage not only for you to do some training officer to officer at your site, but to take advantage of all the training options that are offered to you. And that leads me to my next point. Learn as much as you can. Hopefully, since convention this year happens to be in Ontario, you'll be able to send a representative or two to convention. This is a great time to train, network, meet people from other schools that have great ideas for programming that we can lovingly borrow and make our own. PTA.org is the national PTA website. They actually have free training modules that are on there for most of the elected positions, and you can take them. They take anywhere from a half an hour to an hour to complete, but they're full of lots of really good downloads, and you get a certificate at the end saying that you've completed it. I have done several of them just to see what they are, and they're actually really, really a great place to start. On CAPTA.org, they have the complete California State PTA Toolkit online. Lots of great resources for you are available there. Also, several resources that are available in multiple languages, so that might be helpful as well. We have our own council webpage, scvpta.org, where we have links to past webinars so that you can see what else we've done that may be of interest to you as you're changing positions. We also have a calendar on there so that you can see what upcoming trainings are available for you to participate in, and other resources for you as well. The 34th District does do a few trainings, one in the spring and then usually one in the fall. So definitely be on the lookout for that. It's a great opportunity for you to learn from district experts in their position. And then we at Council also actually do 2 trainings for you. Our first training is going to be happening in May, and that is for all elected positions and the Reflections Chair. And then we also do a secondary training in the fall. The date has not yet been selected for that, but it's usually, I want to say it's our September meeting. That's usually the council training in the fall. At this time, the board-elect needs to review the bylaws to see if any changes need to be made. The board-elect can propose changes to the bylaws and have them begin to go up the channels. So they would go to our council parliamentarian and then to the district parliamentarian up to the state and then come back. The reason why you want to do this now is because it is a process that it takes a month or 2 to go through all these different channels to get up and get back. And then you need to give your association 30 days notice that you're going to be bringing them changes. So potentially on July 1, you could notify them that you're going to be bringing them changes at your first meeting in August, and let them know that you're going to be bringing them some bylaw changes. So it's a really good idea in the spring to review those bylaws. Obviously, they wouldn't go into effect until next term, but it's really important that you just take a look at them and make sure they're meeting the needs of your unit. You also, at least the president-elect and one other officer, should meet with your school administrators to talk about your joint goals. TAs have some new program ideas that they would like to pitch to the school. It's really important that you have good communication with your school administrators. This can cause lots of problems. Leslie and I have been called in a couple of different times for schools when there's a complete lack of communication between the administrators and the PTA, and it just leads to a lot of bad feelings and problems that didn't need to be there if you would just sit down and talk about what you envision for the PTA and hear what they envision for the PTA and the school. This is especially crucial if your administration is changing. I know a lot of administrators move, promote, retire. If you are going to have a new school administrator, as soon as they come into their office over the summer, you want to meet with them and have a conversation. It's also a really great idea to survey your school. Talk about what activities would they like to see. Ask them, how did you like the fundraisers this year? Should we switch to a direct donation? Should we go back to the wrapping paper sale? Should we have a walkathon? What, do you want to see us give more money to the fine arts department? Do you want us to give more money to the PE program? What is important to your association? Oftentimes we think we know, but then we get the survey results back and we're surprised. I can tell you from personal experience at my school, for several years, we had been giving a large portion of our PTA funds to the fine arts program. And we sent out the survey and found that our parents really wanted a physical education program. So we were able to shift some of our funds so that we could still help fund the fine arts program, but we could also partially help with a physical education program. So find out what the association actually wants. You can send a survey out to all of the parents, whether they're PTA members or not. You can do this with an electronic thing like a Google form or a Survey Monkey, or you can just do the old-fashioned paper pencil. But it's always a good idea just to make sure that we're all on the same page, that the new board and the parents at the school are all thinking the same thing. It is highly suggested that you calendar your summer meeting before people leave in June. Leslie and I, when we were going over this, we were laughing because it's sort of like herding cats. Once everybody is off for summer vacation, your mind isn't completely on PTA. It's on fun things like Walt Disney World and camping trips and going to the beach. But if you have a summer meeting scheduled, that gives people a chance to just block it out on their calendar and know that they need to come back from the lake in time to be at your meeting. And it's a really great idea to have at least one summer meeting, late June, mid-July, so that you can make sure all your ducks are in a row for the beginning of the year. These last two are really extra specially important, and I should have bolded and highlighted and underlined them. But the board-elect really needs to be respectful of the current board. They are still in power. That sounds very official, but they still have all the authority. Right now, you are just in your planning stages. Please don't stand up in the middle of one of their meetings. Please don't. If you need to say something to the association, ask permission of the current president. They'll find time to schedule you on the agenda. But please try not to usurp volunteers and time and attention. The current board still has a lot to accomplish, and it's all for the betterment of our school and our kids. So please be respectful of all the officers who are there. And you need to remember that your official duties do not begin until July 1st. I think all of our boards actually in Santa Clarita all begin on July 1st. I don't think we have any alternate start times. But you do not get to officially be the board until July 1. So please just keep those things in mind as you move forward the next few months. All right, so there are a lot of great things that you can do together, and Leslie's going to tell you about a few of them.
So as you transition, if you can get your current board and your board-elect to work together, it will make everything much smoother. So if you can have officers work with and train their counterparts, that would be awesome and amazing. We know that it's not always possible. Sometimes you have personality conflicts or time just doesn't allow it. But if at all possible, hook the incoming person with the current person so that they can share what they've learned over the past year. The budget and calendar are the primary responsibility of the new board. But like Heather said earlier, the current president and treasurer can and probably should act as advisors on those committees. So keep them in the loop and make sure that you're scheduling meetings at times that they also can attend. Their input will help you tremendously as you plan for your next year. If you have never created a budget, you're going to want somebody who has sitting there with you as you do it. You don't really want too many people in that budget meeting, in my opinion, because it kind of gums up the work, so to speak. But
agreed. Yeah, you don't want everybody in there, but you sure do want at least the current president and treasurer.
Yes, and the calendar, like Heather said, you have to do that with your school admin. And again, you take 2 or 3 PTA representatives and set up a meeting with your admin to do that. And then the budget, you do not have to have your school admin there. Some people do, some people don't, but they are, unless they're on the actual board and participating with how the money is being spent, they don't really get to choose, so to speak. They could maybe say, looking forward to next year, I know that you guys usually give a donation, and these are the areas that we're thinking as a staff that we would like to focus and maybe that you could consider that as your budgeting. That's fine. They can sit in as an advisory, in an advisory capacity. Anything else with that, Heather, or is that good?
No, that's totally perfect.
Okay. And then we talked earlier a little bit about inviting the new board to an executive board meeting or to a meeting that you have with the district. That will help them understand the responsibilities that they are about to undertake. Maybe they have no idea what a PAC meeting is. Invite them along. PAC meetings are open meetings. You can always invite extra people to come along and just see what to expect in those meetings. And the executive board meeting, if they've never been to an executive board meeting, it's a really good idea to invite them along to an executive board meeting so that they can see how that goes and where the bulk of the work that a PTA does takes place. Procedure books, like we mentioned earlier, should be transferred over by July 1st. So at my unit, what we do is we just have everybody clean up your procedure books, get everything in order, take away your personal items, leave the unit items in there, and return them to our PTA room by the end of the school year. So usually what we do, because if you wait past that, you'll never find them. And then we have them there for the new board to maybe put updated rosters in or whatever, the updated budget, whatever you put into your procedure book, that can all be done because you have all of the procedure books right there at the ready. And then,
and just a note on procedure books. Sorry, Leslie, before you move on. If the past board did not create procedure books, the board-elect should begin to create them. That is a completely appropriate organizational expense. It's oftentimes out of your office supplies budget. So as the president-elect, I would ask the current president, hey, do you guys have procedure books? Sometimes people call them officer binders or folders, chair folders, something. Ask them, do you have something that you're going to be able to pass on? And if they say, no, we've never done that, then you and your board-elect are going to need to create those. So you'll go out, you'll buy the binders, you'll buy the dividers, you'll start putting the bylaws in there, the rosters, a space for all their executive board notes, their association notes, their flyers. So if the old board doesn't have procedure books, the board-elect should absolutely start creating them.
Yes. And then we have council association meetings throughout the year, so we will have some left this year. Bring your board-elect with you to those council association meetings. Those are also the responsibility of an executive board, so they should have a look. And when they come, they can meet other units. That's one of my favorite parts about council meetings, is that you can talk to people from other units and, like Heather was saying earlier, get ideas from them. Hey, have you done an assembly for Health Week? Because we're really looking for one, and you'll find really good ideas there. So it's a good place for them to get to know other units. And then the last thing on this slide is taxes. That should be a joint task. As soon as your treasurer wraps up the books for this year, you can start the taxes, whether you do them yourself or you send them out. They can be done as soon as that audit is complete. So it's good to have the current board start that process and keep the incoming board informed, because somebody's going to either have to pick them up or receive them in an email, or however you work it with your tax preparer. But you're going to have to work as a team so that you get them there and you get them back. And you might as well do it as soon as you can this summer, because it's going to be the first thing that council asks you for in the fall. So the sooner you get it done, the sooner it's off your plate and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yes, and they're due November 15th, and let me tell you, that comes up awfully quickly.
Yes, it does.
So if you can just do them over the summer and then have that checked, you can send a copy to Leslie or myself, and we'll file it away in the council records, and you will be completely in compliance and just not even have to think about it. It's a really, really good thing. And as soon as you've done that annual financial report, that paper is really what you need to file your taxes. So as soon as the treasurer has completed that, Let's get those taxes filed. It's really an easy process. All right, so it is now July 1, and we are now in the new term. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Train, train, train. Learn as much as you can about PTA policy and procedure. Learn as much as you can about your position and what they do and the positions around you. In PTA, nothing is ever in a vacuum. The president never does anything alone. Similarly, the secretary never does anything alone. Every job depends on another job. So one of my favorite board members from my unit, she would go and learn her position. And then at the next training, I'd say, oh, are you going to go back and, learn that position again? She goes, no, I'm going to go learn about the secretary because I want to know what they do. And I might have to fill in for that someday. And then at the next training, I'd be like, hey, what are you doing this time? I'm going to learn about parliamentarian because that affects everybody. This woman has trained in every single position possible, and it makes her one of the most knowledgeable people on our board. She understands what everyone does, how every person's job interconnects to the next. It makes her a super valuable officer, and I'm so excited that we stole her and she's now on council too, because people like that just understand how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together are really valuable for your PTA. So the more learning you can do, the better off you'll be. Leslie and I have gone and we've done several mediations, and the common thing that we're seeing is that people don't understand where my job ends and yours begins. So I start accidentally doing your job. Well, now you're wondering, well, does she not trust me? Does she not like me? And it becomes a personal thing when it was really just, I didn't understand that I wasn't supposed to do that it was your job. So the more you can understand about how it all works, the better off you'll be. You also need to contact your bank about how to change the signatures on the account. We would love to say that this is a simple and painless process, but every single bank is slightly different in what they require. So call up your bank after July 1 and say, we are the new officers of the blank PTA, and we need to add new signatures to our account. They will tell you what they need. Almost always, it is a copy of the minutes. Oftentimes, it's the official copy, which is in your secretary's book. Many times, they will need the secretary to come vouch for the said officers. All the people who are going to be added to the account need to be present and need to have an ID with them. They take a copy of that, and then they ask you to sign the signature card. The other piece to that is you need to remove past officers from your bank account. You do not need the president from 3 years ago to still be a signer on your bank account. That's not good fiduciary practice. So when you go in and say, we are the 3 new officers for such and such PTA, would you please remove Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Jones, and Mr. Davidson? They are no longer signatures on our account. Prep your back to school activities. Most of us do some sort of a welcome back coffee or popsicle party or boohoo yahoo breakfast. Start getting those things ready. Start talking to your hospitality chair or whoever your chairperson is for those things. Fall festivals, those come very quickly. So starting to work on them in the summer is oftentimes a really good plan.
Membership packets.
Picking your membership theme. That's a huge one that you can start in the summer. Start making those cute posters that you're going to hang up and thinking about how you're going to reward classes who get 100%. All of those things are really great things to start right away in the summer. This is one of those tricky ones that Leslie and I oftentimes get calls like, well, wait. So such and such fundraising company wants me to sign the contract now, we're talking March, April, so that we can have them be our fall fundraiser. And Leslie and I will tell you, The answer is no.
No.
You do not begin your term until July 1st. Vendors should know that in the PTA universe, you do not get to sign contracts until July 1st. And the outgoing board cannot encumber the new board with anything. So the current board can't say, hey, we want to do such and such, fun run company next year. So we're going to sign the contract and just tell them we did it. That contract should be null and void. Each board gets to make their own decisions on what kind of fundraising, yearbook companies and school photographer companies and
book
fundraising, book fairs, all those different things. The board elect gets to decide those things with the association's approval. So if at your final association meeting of the year, the association approved for you to have a fun run in the fall or a book fair in October, you can start signing those contracts July 1st. And you can start working with the vendors July 1st. Now, they might try to pressure you into signing early. I would urge you to not, because that's not the way we do things. On July 1, you can start signing those contracts. As always, when you are signing a contract, the president must be one of the signatures, and there needs to be at least one other board member signature or chairperson signature. And next to it, you should always put on behalf of such and such PTA, because that doesn't mean that Leslie and I are signing the contract with the book fair company. That means Leslie and I have been empowered by the association at West Creek Academy to sign this contract. So we would sign it, Heather Ippolito and Leslie Powell, on behalf of West Creek Academy PTA. So that's not she and I are setting into this agreement. It's the school. As I said earlier, team building and goal setting is a really important place to start. Please don't skip that and go straight to the business. It might seem a little funny to do an icebreaker or a name game or something like that, but remember, there's always at least one person in the room who isn't as close with everybody else. A lot of boards have a lot of returners, and that's great. But there's always a person or two who's brand new to the board. Maybe they were a chairperson before, so you saw them at a couple of meetings, but now they've moved into an elected position, and they're going to be around a lot. We really want to make sure that we're all starting off coming together as a team. And the last one is really important for the new board to remember, and quite frankly, for the existing board to remember as well as they're finishing up. Breathe, relax, and smile. I say breathe because things are not always going to go the way that you intended for them to go. Sometimes they take a turn that you were not expecting, and you have to go from plan A to plan B to plan V. But if you can breathe and just remember that this very stressful thing that's happening to you right now is really just to make a great activity for the kids or a great program for the kids. So breathe through it. Relax. During the summer, sometimes things shift and change. Sometimes officers move or change schools. Sometimes the principal or teachers change. Relax. This has happened before, and this will probably happen again. So you are not alone in these things. If all of a sudden you find yourself missing a key officer, don't worry. Council has ways to help you. We have strategies for that. Contact us. We can help you through it. And the last one is smile. Your energy is going to set the tone for everything. If you're walking through the campus with a frustrated look on your face or a grouchy face or a resting whatever face, people are going to remember that. And so you need to make sure that you are exuding that confidence, that positivity, that excitement for PTA and all the amazing things that you are about to accomplish for the kids at your school. So at this point, I don't think that we have any questions. I've been kind of monitoring as we're going. I'm going to try to there I am. Hi. So I want to thank you guys so much. We're getting so good at this, Leslie. 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And we talked about all the transition possibilities in the universe. I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank Leslie so much for her amazing expertise. Just so you know, both Leslie and I have gone through transitions, feels like 100 times, with various boards and with various things. So we know of what we speak. It's a kind of a challenging time in the PTA year, but it's also really exciting. It's that wrapping up all the great things of one board, and it's getting ready for all the possibility of a new board. And all of that can be a really, really magical time for your PTA. Hopefully, you can breathe and smile and relax and know that it might not transition as beautifully as you would like it to, but with a little bit of patience and a couple calls to counsel, because we're here to help, you will have a really positive experience both as the outgoing board and as the incoming board. All right, Leslie, anything else?
Nope, I don't think so. I think you've covered everything.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you have a good evening. We hope that we will see you at our council election meeting coming up on Thursday for those of you who are watching live. I just found out that Bricks for Kids is coming to do an activity with the kids.
Good.
So I know I'm really excited. So it's our election meeting, so we really need y'all to be there. And I think that's it for the night.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.